You booked it, episode 134. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. And if you want even more, head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the email community where we dig deep into what you can be doing right now to help book that next gig. And now, let's do this. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Dani Elizabeth. Are you ready for this, Dani?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
All right. Dani was born and raised in upstate New York. She studied ballet from the age of 4, danced on her college dance team, and graduated with a bachelor's in marketing and advertising. After finishing college, Dani moved to Los Angeles and then to Las Vegas, where she has had the privilege of performing with celebrities including Jennifer Lopez on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, CeeLo Green, Britney Spears, DJ Tiesto, and Lady Gaga's saxophonist Brian Newman. Las Vegas credits include Don Arden's Jubilee, Purple Rain, as well as magician's assistant for Laughternoon. She joined the cast of the longest-running burlesque show in America, Crazy Girls, in 2016, and was elated with joy and gratitude when asked to become the host only a few months later. Dani, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps, and a
Yeah.
little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
My pleasure, and thanks so much for having me. This is
Of
so great.
course.
So let's see, for the past 4 years now, I've been working in Crazy Girls. And like you had mentioned, I also host the show. But when I went into the show, I went in as a dancer. And originally, I moved out to Las Vegas for the show Jubilee. And I now have been here for just over 8 years, which is so hard to believe. I can't even believe it. Oh my gosh. But so before COVID, I was working 6 nights a week at Planet Hollywood Casino, hosting and dancing, and the longest running burlesque show in America, which is Crazy Girls. And then I also, once a week, was working with my now fiance as of last week at his show, Murray the Magician, over at Tropicana. So I would do that, and then I would bump over and do my show because his was about an hour earlier before my call time. So it worked out really well. And it was very busy, but it was also very exciting. I was also working with ZZ Top on doing 2 numbers for their show that was supposed to take place at the Venetian. But now, because of COVID, they pushed it back until next year. But that was also very exciting. So everything was happening at once before the
Yeah,
world shut down.
that is cool. And congratulations on the
Thank
engagement.
thank you. Thank you. Super
Yeah,
exciting.
I can
It's been
imagine.
3 years. Yeah, it was 3 years on September 28th, and we went to Mount Charleston, and we were just going to celebrate the night, I thought, and we're drinking some wine in one of the little cabins and eating some snacks, and he was eating some Cracker Jacks. He was like, "Oh, honey, do you want the prize?" Because I always get excited about the prize, and normally it's like a sticker, but I'm like, maybe we'll get the one box. And so I pull the prize thing out, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, we actually got a real toy in this one, honey!" I was so excited. I opened it, and I'm like, "Skirt, this is not a toy." And then he was down on one knee, and he was like, "So will you marry me?" And I was just so confused. So it took me a second. And he's like, "Oh, will you?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, of course." It was super cute, and it's a lot of fun.
Ah, brilliant. That sounds great. And let's get moving on to this first section here. And Dani, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
So one of my favorite quotes is from John Lennon: "Everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end."
So good and very pertinent for the time that we're in right
Yeah,
now.
exactly, right.
Yeah, but can you expand on how that has played itself into your life and your career?
Sure. So anytime I'm going through a hard time, I remember it's not the end, and you have to just keep pushing, keep striving to be better. You if you didn't book a gig or you happen to have a show that wasn't your best performance, you have to go back home and rework it and figure out what you can do to do it differently and to be better so that the next time you overcome that hurdle. And if you keep overcoming hurdles, well, before you know it, you reach your goals and you become the best version of yourself that you want to become. So when you're going through a rough patch, just remember that's not the end. This is a life lesson, and you have to learn how to conquer that to move forward before you find another life lesson that you have to figure out.
For sure. They always have a way of keeping us on our toes, don't they? But yes, thank you. So well said. So well said. And let's move on to this next section here. And Dani, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Oh man, I could list a bunch, all pros and cons to everything, but one that pops out in my mind that I'd say more recently, because the last show or the show that I'm in now, I've been in for the last 4 years. And I was in the show for about a year and a half when they asked me if I would be interested in hosting. And at the time, we had a comedy magician as the in between middle act between act one and act two. And I was like, yeah, sure, I could host, get up there and say a couple things. And he's like, okay, great. Put together a 15-minute monologue and show me in 3 weeks. And I was like, yeah,
Whoa.
okay. I get home. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And then I kept in the back of my mind how confident my producer was. He said to me, he's like, oh, I know you're a New Yorker, Italian. You like to talk to people a lot. Like, you could do this. And I'm like, I can. He's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. I have faith. So go home, put something together. So luckily I had about a month to do it. But when you don't have a background in that, even if you do have a background in it, I imagine that it is pretty scary. But
Yeah.
writing comedy and putting together basically, essentially an outline for hosting an entire show was pretty terrifying. But I was lucky enough and resourceful that I have had friends, actually friends of mine that worked as the host of the show Absinthe out here. Like the universe just brought me to them. I'm also a massage therapist, and they happened to be new clients that I had no idea. Walked in and met them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just the universe looking out for me. So,
Yeah.
I put together an outline and used my resources and had friends and family and mentors guide me through things. And then I just spent the next like 6 months to a year doing it on stage and trying to tweak it so that I could get better every time, because people do comedy and host things for decades and they're still constantly fine tuning what they're doing. So I think because I said yes to the challenge, even though I had moments where I think I tried to have a conversation where I was like, maybe I'm not the best for this situation or this opportunity. And he was like, I always want to hear it first. And when he pushed me to do that, and I pushed myself, I realized, what, if you don't try, you don't know. And I think that was one of the most recent, biggest things I've overcome in saying, okay, I really don't know what I can do, but I'm going to do my best and see what happens. And I'm so grateful to this day that I did.
You said, if you don't try, you don't know. And that is so true. And I think we oftentimes get caught up in our head. We get caught up in the emotion and the moment of it. But that is really what it boils down to. You simply have to do it. See what
Absolutely.
happens. Because if you fall on your face, that's fine.
Yeah. Exactly. And everybody has to fall on their face in order to be better. At least once. There's no such
At
thing as
least
being
once.
perfect right out of the gate. That doesn't exist. It takes practice to be perfect. And I think we have to be more accepting of that.
Exactly. And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Okay. So 8 years ago, I auditioned for Jubilee, and I had been auditioning for a lot of different shows and Disney, and I think even some cruise ships at the time. But I went to school for marketing and I moved to Los Angeles for a career in marketing. So for me, I was like, now I've been living in LA for 3 years. I've been training really hard. I want to try to be a professional dancer. I want that on my
Yeah.
resume. So finally, after about a year of auditioning, I booked Jubilee and had no idea what it was at the time. And I moved to Las Vegas and went through all the rehearsals, which you know about because we got to perform on that stage together at Bally's Las
Yeah.
Vegas. And I remember after the first show, and I was terrified. And the curtain went down, and as the finale stares, and everybody is from the cast is out on stage for that final moment when the curtain closes. And when that first curtain went down, and I could hear everyone in the audience applauding, I stood there and I just remember my eyes filling up with tears. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm hooked. I'm addicted. I will definitely be back tomorrow. So I think that was the very first moment that I knew that I was like, wow, okay, this is going to be a new life for me. And then the second one was about 4 years later when, as I just told you, when I got asked to host. And it took me quite a couple months to really get comfortable doing it and changing out jokes because I'm trying to make my jokes stronger. And I know that's a learning process in itself. But as I got better at it and more comfortable on stage, if I could use my voice and make someone laugh, there is something so unique and special and powerful to me that I was like, okay, I can see myself moving permanently in this direction. I'm addicted to this now.
That is so good. That stage in Jubilee was really something special. The sets were
Hmm.
massive. The sheer number of people on that set, so good.
Yeah.
And I love that you found this new thing, the hosting, the comedy, because it's also so fulfilling. And I think that's what is so important about this podcast is that it's highlighting, hey, you can start here, start dancing, or you could start in advertising and marketing, right? And then
Yeah.
go, you know what? This is what I want. Dancing, having that audience in front of that, all the stickle of that. And then you discover comedy and hosting. And it's all, it's all kind of tied together. And that's what's so cool about having people like you on the show so we can really highlight that you don't just have to stay in one place your entire career, that you can start one place, end up somewhere completely different, and be just as fulfilled or more.
Yeah. I love that. So true.
Yes. And let's piggyback on that question real quick and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What
Hmm.
was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Yes. Well, I definitely would say that my first and number one moment was receiving Jubilee because that was the first show that I ended up doing throughout in the beginning of my career. And I was living in Los Angeles and I was no longer working in marketing because I wanted to train. I was taking 2 ballet classes a day and jazz and all everything that you do to prepare yourself. So I was working odd end jobs just so I didn't have to work a 9 to 5, or in marketing, it's more like an 8 to 7 or whenever you're done. Right. So,
Right.
um, so I was working at Nordstrom in the fragrance department. I was working as a trainer at a Curves gym in Hollywood. And then I was also teaching dance classes at IDA, which is an international dance academy in Hollywood area. So my girlfriend and I would go and she would take my class and we'd always ride our bikes about a mile and a half to the studio. We left the studio and we were riding back home and all of a sudden my phone started ringing. And if there's a number in my phone that I don't recognize, and now I'm a little bit different to this because in the sense of trying to book things, but at the
Yeah.
time, especially, I was like, I don't have this number programmed. I'm going to just screen the call. And then underneath it said where the number was coming from. And it said Las Vegas, Nevada. And I was like, Las Vegas.
Oh.
And I had auditioned for Jubilee a few weeks prior to receiving this call. So I told my girlfriend, we like pull over off Sunset Boulevard. And I'm like, wait. And I get the call and it's Diane Palm and she's Dani. Yes. And she's like, I would like to offer you a spot here at Jubilee as a short nude. And that's all she said. And I put the phone on mute and pulled it away from my face just in case I didn't hit the mute button. And I just started crying as I'm straddling my bicycle on the side of Sunset Boulevard. And my girlfriend's there and she knew what was going on. So she's jumping up and down and her bike fell over. And then I got off the phone. I was just like, thank you. Yes. I try not to cry. I really look forward to this. Yeah. I'm like, okay. And then I hung up and then we both dropped our bikes and just started jumping up and down and hugging each other because she knew she's an actress in LA and she knew how hard I worked and how important this was for me. And as I know for her, she goes on gigs and auditions all the time. So that was my first moment. And man, there is nothing like that feeling.
Oh, you're so right. It's such a great story. And I love that you were just on Sunset Boulevard. Why not?
I was like, well, I don't really need my bike anymore. If it gets hit by a car, you can't ride them in Las Vegas. It's fine.
Exactly. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And it's a weird time, right? We're amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Yes. Okay. To your first question there, I feel like you don't have to limit yourself. I'm a dancer and a host, performer, but I also consider myself a businesswoman. And I went to school for marketing. So I currently still work on certain people's social media pages during this COVID time. And my fiance and I started a landscaping company because he's been doing landscaping projects as hobbies for friends and at his houses and the house that I own for over 20 years now. So we started a landscaping company called Dirt to Dreams. And we've actually been doing we've been getting quite a lot of gigs. So like yesterday we did 3 different houses and the size of the project all varies on the client and the house, but we've done a lot of cool things like put down fake grass and sin lawn to redesigning people's entire backyards to yard cleanup, building waterfalls. It's been really fun and interesting and also uses our creative side and also a really great workout. So if the world shuts down again, don't worry about a gym, just start landscaping, you'll be fine. And then also massage therapy. I went back to school for that about 6 years ago now. And so I've been doing that as well. And I have my own private freelance business, but it's just about how to keep yourself busy and entertained. And as for the entertainment industry moving forward, at least from what I have seen and I think will be happening in Las Vegas, is I think that a lot of these bigger shows and bigger productions will start to dissipate or maybe not even come back after this time of COVID. And I think that the smaller shows and more of the lounge environments, those are going to be the things that thrive and a more intimate setting, what old Vegas used to be. And that makes me super excited. I really hope that prediction is true, but I think that's what Vegas is all about. It's that more intimate, old school, lounge vibe.
Yeah, I really enjoy your insight on that. And I really enjoy the lounge setting as well. I like to have a drink, have a conversation, and have some entertainment all at the same time.
For sure. And even the smaller shows where you might not be able to have dinner and conversation. My show, Crazy Girls, it's a cast of 6 and 1 or 2 ushers and 2 to 3 stagehands. So it's a small, intimate environment and show that you could enjoy in not a 5,000 seat theater, which will be a lot easier moving forward to be careful with not spreading germs and COVID and all those things.
Exactly. And less butts to put in seats, so
Exactly.
a higher probability of maybe remaining profitable. So
yeah.
we'll see
And
what
lasting
happens.
longer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round.
Ooh.
I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I'd say nothing. I strongly believe in don't put your eggs all in one basket.
Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Never stop dancing no matter what.
Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
A bottle of wine at night? Just kidding. Keeping busy, and just keep trying new things constantly, no matter how hard it is.
Fourth question. What is your best resource, whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast, or a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
I'd say all of the above. Honestly, I try to read, watch anything I can that involves comedy and how people go about putting together words and being great at it.
Great. And the fifth question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
I'd say let go of fear, don't judge yourself, and no one is looking out for you more than you.
Ah, so true. And the last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I'd say there's no such thing as a mistake. If you don't try, then you don't know. And if you don't put yourself out there, you don't learn and you won't grow. So, balls to the wall, go after everything that makes you happy.
Beautiful. And to wrap up this interview, Dani, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram as Dani Showgirl, Dani Showgirl. And then TikTok is Dani Elizabeth 7. I love making TikTok videos. I find them highly entertaining, and it's like a child entertaining themselves. So that's me. And then on Facebook, Dani Elizabeth. So you can check me out at all three. And I have a website too, which you can find on my Instagram page, DaniElizabeth.com.
And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything Dani just said into the description of this episode so you can easily connect with her. Dani, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to have you on.
Thank you so much, Dane. And it's so great that you're doing this and just giving everyone a voice. It's really something special.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. I have a new guest 7 days a week. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.